This conference will now be recorded.
Text her. Have somebody come up and I'll set our down.
Well, we have the deputy mayor here. Yeah, it's like, say the
Yeah,
pledge.
you start the meeting.
We gotta wait one more minute for the pledge. According to Apple. Or Windows. Oh, 3:30.
I don't know.
Do you want to say the pledge? Or are we gonna wait for Artie? Oh, it's the deputy.
Peter.
Just wait for her.
Oh, fine.
The Prince doesn't want to take. She just wants to swing the rule.
Well, maybe I like.
That's why he's so young. It doesn't complicate his life unless he has.
Oh, Alton was on yesterday too.
Who was?
Alton.
He just killed.
I don't know.
We're just waiting for the mayor. He's coming down.
What is that?
Yeah, everyone's muted. It seems like I can hear.
Oh, it was Alton. Are you talking about Neptune? Alton.
Thank you.
When you said you're like, we're talking about Neptune.
Mr. John.
Howdy.
Wait.
Just seeing the leader, huh?
Oh, someone's listening to their radio in a truck or something.
It's a Zoom
Oh.
in the truck.
Yeah, so I read the article. So I just, I just, but what would be the equivalent to the zones where it's like 90%, 50%, and then 10%?
Would be the Gateway Corridor or Main Street.
Is that what it is? So
Is that the Breckenridge?
because I was like, that's what stood out to me. It's like, how do you do that?
And the further away the neighborhoods is what we consider Hillcrest. They're, in Breckenridge, they're doing what they're proposing to do. As they sell, they have 2,000 STRs there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they got more than they want to do, 2,000.
When I lived out there, Breckenridge wasn't huge by any means.
Did it have summer business?
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah, they did mountain biking and stuff.
I'm probably more
Hello.
from
Hi.
ski resorts for them here. Small condos. Darcy,
How are you feeling?
thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, my 2:30 went long, no worries. Wayne, how you doing?
Fine.
Unless they flipped a number, our STR's not on here. Unless they flipped a number in the address, our STR's not on here.
Seriously?
Yeah. They have 2419, but we're 2411.
Maybe they flipped the number. Show me, where are you? Oh, you're on,
Village Center.
those, 2419 should be what?
We're 2491. I don't know what 2419 is. I'd have to look it up.
You're
It could be-
24 what? 91?
Yep.
Okay.
left it.
Sorry about that again. Okay, wasn't that a pretty clean piece of paper?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We did find out, we shared that with everyone that, yeah, Anita read that to us, right? That the moratorium is until the end of September.
Yes.
Did you get that, Darcy?
No.
Anita found the legislation on it. Apparently, when the moratorium falls into a month, it's good until the end of that month. So it'll be good until the end of September. At least that's for the village, and I'm assuming the town will probably be the same.
We talked about that, and that's, it seemed that they came to that.
No, they didn't say
No,
that.
no, they came to the
September
60 day, I think that's
September
6
10th
months.
is the town's 12th, I thought, because the 10th was a Saturday.
Saturday,
Okay.
that's the first following
So
non-holiday.
then it would probably go to the end of the month as well.
No, they're
No,
thinking more
so the
like
town's
specific, yeah.
But I did find out from Emily that their lawyer is suggesting a 90-day moratorium because extending the moratorium.
This is municipalities at work.
Exactly what he said.
Yep.
And he read it essentially for verbatim what you said.
Everything just takes,
Takes time.
it's not private enterprise. Okay.
With integration partners.
Do we have any criticals or highs that are outstanding with regard to the August release?
Anybody else?
Meeting within a meeting.
Yeah, why not?
Are being efficient.
Okay, so, assuming we would probably follow what the village or the town is doing,
Yeah.
go with the 90 day.
They always rescind it.
That's right. It's easier to put on the.
Not doing it twice.
Do you have a starting point?
If we want to continue, because, the low-hanging fruit is we all agreed that we would continue to allow hosted in the village residential, but we did not determine or come to an agreement as to what hosted was, because we did banter back and forth about it being
A person
someone
who
with a
lives-
legal residence versus somebody,
Owner.
well, the owner
Long-term
or
resident.
being assigned, being responsible. So,
And as I said before, my feeling on that is I would want to wait at least a year and see how enforcement goes and how the program goes before we start allowing someone who's a renter to be considered, hosted operation.
Because it'd be difficult to go back and change that language, I almost think.
What's that? Well, I mean, if you
Allow
say
it.
that right now, the only, I see what you're saying is take it away
Yeah.
versus hold back and put it in later.
And then you go,
That would be my opinion, but, I'm one of five.
I agree.
Okay, I agree with Art's opinion.
I am leaning towards that way. Well, only
That it should be the owner.
that it should be the owner. Only because, again, as we've talked about enforcement, we do realize that enforcement is essential to make any of this work. Let's see what enforcement actually does.
Okay.
With cleaner language and
Yeah.
a dedicated person being
Yes.
able to manage the data.
Yeah.
And, I'd love to revisit it because I really
I know,
think it can create some long-term runs.
And I see that point as well.
Yeah, but I agree with you. For this,
But there would be a dual experiment,
Exercise.
continue, like, we can look at the town to see how.
there's going to be other
the town-
things that have to come about.
And then maybe we use that as a sort of a litmus test.
We've defined.
We have.
We have
Big
defined,
thing.
yep.
Should we just call it? No?
Sure, posted, there we go, posted. Legal residence.
Okay, and what about, I guess, you've got set a date for a public hearing.
Well,
Maybe wait till the end of our discussion.
yeah,
to
exactly,
determine
those
that,
were new topics that we should discuss, I didn't want that to get lost at the
Yeah,
bottom.
no, okay.
But we will have to set a public hearing for the extension of the moratorium. Should we look at tentative dates? Or is that something procedural or administrative we can do after the fact?
We need Janet to write the language first. So I guess that's something we better make sure we get to Anita. We're looking at 90 days. I'll make a note.
And I had brought it up before. I just real hesitant to have that apply to the Main Street corridor or the, whatever we're calling it,
The gateway or the village center.
Village Center, or
Because there's no real issues with.
there's no real issues. Plus, we know there's projects that are gonna come online anytime now that are relying on that.
Well, but maybe that's a good area to go next. Let's talk about the Main Street and Gateway corridor. Where are we all on that? Are we all in agreement that you can have as many as you want for 365 days of the year?
That currently is enforced from Brewster to the post office. That's the only section of Village Center that has that allowed, unlimited and 365.
Gateway corridor, isn't that?
No,
What is Gateway?
Is that like 90?
I didn't notice that.
Wait, say that again about the village center?
Village Center is unlimited number of units and 365. And it's only from Brewster to the post office. It's the only district that allows that. That's an overlay.
Currently?
Yes,
No, because then there is from the post office down to Mill Hill too.
but that does not allow
Unlimited.
unlimited. That's what Mike told me, so maybe I misunderstood him. I said, that's an overlay, right? And he said, yes.
No, that's not, so Main Street, so it goes Village Center, and I'm forgetting why we pulled it out between that section, but no, it goes Village Center, Main Street, which includes all the way down to the traffic light.
So you can go 365 days traffic light to Brewster Park, is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
In
And then
Village
anything else?
Center,
I guess it doesn't, we can do whatever we want now, right?
Well, hold on, I mean, so part of the language that the town that we want to incorporate and what Mike and Darcy's office wants to incorporate when we go to repealing and replacing the definitions, and we need to add that no STRs front-facing Main Street. So that would come into play.
But that's only from post office to Brewster.
Well, we were saying any retail.
We were saying Town Hall to Brewster Park.
Town Hall, that's right, the last discussion, yeah. Town Hall to Brewster Park is what we said, Jack.
Do we have that written down, Jackie, or should I make a note on that?
I'll make a note on that,
That
Art.
was the actual decision. we
Just
made.
click the microphone,
oh, maybe not.
I think.
Oh,
Could you go past Brewster
Not-
Park?
not beyond
Oh,
Town Hall.
Down this way.
sorry, I missed that. What did we say?
Brewster Park to Town Hall, no first floor residential. Okay, so what did,
Okay, why, what if Norm's Barber Shop wanted to become an STR? That's all.
Shop or the restaurant Salt and the Earth, like all these other.
the spots that we picked, I guess you've got,
Okay, what if Mr. Mike sells and they turn the whole thing into STRs? Do you want that first floor? I'm just throwing out all the possibilities.
and obviously anyone that's there now would be grandfathered, is what you're saying. I mean, you have people that have, do we or don't we?
I don't think we have any STRs.
Where?
Street level.
What do you call the guy across from me? He's half of. Is that street level?
No, he's up the hill.
Yeah, he is, it's interesting. And with.
People aren't walking by. All right, what if Brian Delaney sells? I mean, you're just thinking of all the possibilities. You want to
What
keep it.
about Jen Ledger or the Pat Ledger's place?
That's up a hill too.
Okay, and I guess that's actually not on Main Street, is it?
No.
Comes
It's
off
supposedly it's not
Riverside
gonna be
Drive.
short term.
What's that?
It's supposedly it's
They're
not
not
gonna be
gonna
short
be
term.
Right, but it's residential. And we're saying you can't have residential, because we're not just talking short term, we're talking anyone even that rents an apartment for a year or
I mean, if you don't see a problem with it, I'm just, I look at the Greek restaurant that, it's now it's gone out of business, so somebody could come in and put a STR there.
Anyone got any opinions where
I
the,
was trying to think why we decided 2 weeks ago, why we decided.
originally it was just post office to Brewster Park. And
Yeah,
Keeping the
extended it
main
down.
street.
Then we extended it to here,
Because,
but we didn't want to go the rest of the way. I don't remember.
Because I don't think there's any residential components of it here between here and there.
Well, I
Whereas
think
you
we
go
were-
Saranac Ave,
I think we
you
were
know.
thinking of the cobbler shop and the fireside, that the potential, they're in construction now and the potential exists, but their plan calls for a retail shop on Main Street. I don't know what fireside calls for.
And where Della Valley used to be, that's residential on the street level. I mean, I guess you could grandfather that if he sells a building, he wouldn't be allowed for the next owner, but is that what you really are looking for?
Well, we were,
I mean, nobody wants to lose stores, but we don't want to inhibit people that are currently renting that could sell the building. Anyone got an opinion on that?
I think coming to here is fine. I think,
to the town hall.
yeah, I mean, we can come up with reasons for and against it, extending it all the way down to the corner store, really.
So far, it's worked.
Okay, town hall.
Okay, so Brewster to town hall.
No first floor residential. Okay, so, and we're back to what did you two determine, if you're in that area from the post office to Brewster Park, you can rent 365 days of the year up to 4, or no limit on vacation rentals?
Is it unlimited units, Darcy?
I don't think it's unlimited units. I
It
think there's something.
is unlimited units and not restricted, right?
And I take it we have the ability to change that if we want. Does anyone have an opinion on that?
It's not ideal, but part of the compromise of getting them out of residential is providing them a place to go. That's the only.
Well, Mark, you're a perfect example. You're on Main Street, you've got one. What would you suggest? What's a good mix? I mean, like a maximum of 2 or unlimited? What are your thoughts?
I'm trying to think of how many buildings it would have really applied to where you could have more than 2 or 3. Peter's building.
I mean, the whole idea is to let somebody who's a shop owner be able to afford to have a shop on Main Street, something that's a good shop that still make a living. That's the whole idea, right?
There's a shop, Scotty. Who does this?
How many though?
A couple. They've got a couple, possibly. I don't want to speculate.
I'll just throw something out for discussion. What if we allowed only 2? That allows the business to have a place to bring in extra income, but it also means that they've got 4 living spaces, 2 of them become long-term renters. And just throwing it out, I don't think people have.
So long-term renters are unlimited, STRs at 2?
Right, I'm just saying that if you have a business, and let's take Wayne's old place, I'm assuming it has 4 apartments. If we allow 2 vacation rentals, that helps them to be able to have the store, buy the store, run a nice store, have the income of the vacation rentals, but it also provides 2 long-term apartments for people. So like I said, just throwing it out. I don't know that much about Main Street.
And I don't like to restrict, that's a commercial. And we can't call STRs commercial use, but they are. And so you're telling somebody who has a building on Main Street for commercial use that they can't use it the way they want to. As a building owner, I don't like that idea that you're telling me I
You
can't.
basically can say we can't restrict anybody, but our whole goal here is to get people being, I just came from a discussion, village employees that want to stay here, we can't afford to live here, and you might be leaving us. I mean, that's
No,
what
I
we're up against.
understand that, but
Do we want to just take a straw poll, just so we can kind of keep the conversation going?
And I just threw out a suggestion.
Because there's others that like, from my perspective, there's many locals that have multiple permits. And then if it's, whether it's that person, it's just slightly better because you know the person than someone out of town doing the same thing.
I just think Main Street should be, is commercial, and it should be whatever you want to do there. As far as trying to make a living.
It sounds like you're the same.
yeah.
Jason?
I'm all for it, starting off with a smaller number, but, and then if after a year, reevaluating it and then maybe increasing the number.
How long can get reevaluated?
I see your point. But I see Martin Peters too. It's Main Street, so it's not for strict. Let's
Okay.
let them.
Like I said, I just threw something out for topic of conversation, so.
Yeah, I mean, this whole law came about because of the neighborhoods and because of safety issues. It didn't come about because of Main Street. The STR issue had nothing to do with Main Street ever. Why it was brought up initially, all the complaining from the locals, it had to do with Hillcrest and Greenwood.
Okay, so let's, at this point, I mean, it's time, if we're running out of time, it's time to start pulling things together.
Yeah.
So Main Street is just as it is written now. I think it's unrestricted in number of STRs and number of nights. And that's Brewster Park to
Village Center, Brewster Park
the
to
post office, right?
post office, but we're,
And then anything past that, is it considered gateway corridor? Does that then become restricted to the 90 days?
I think Gateway is,
Darcy, would you?
Say that part again?
So once you get past Brewster Park to the post office, what does it become as far as number of night restrictions and number of?
It's still the same, isn't it? It's unrestricted and
North Carolina Avenue.
That's what I thought it was. when I
If we're
asked.
talking Saranac Avenue, yes,
unrestricted, both in units and number of nights.
correct.
Okay.
And what about Sentinel Road?
all the way out to the.
Sentinel Road, if you're in Gateway Corridor on Sentinel Road, same thing. You can have multiples and no restriction to nights.
That's what I thought.
And that would also go out on 86 towards the Alpine Cellar, the old Alpine Cellar.
Yes.
Okay. And is everyone in agreement with that?
Yes.
Well, we voted, so I guess it's just.
No, just curious, I kind of expanded the scope.
Today's law.
Okay. Hey, it's actually starting to have some agreement and getting somewhere. This is kind of fun. And we've kind of agreed on unhosted. That's nice. Just going right down the list, 14 days.
How many of those did we have? 36? Is that what I wrote down? Or
Those are newest
19
numbers.
Only 19 of them.
And do you know if Britt had a chance to work the numbers?
Yes, I mean, she sent us all the lists. I have not had a chance to count. It's 221. The total was 221.
So you don't know what it is by category? That's, if you don't know, there's no point sitting here.
I do not know by category, I know by district, so that does not help.
Okay, no biggie.
We looked that up yesterday when we were on that call.
Yeah.
What was it, 21? 19?
19 is what I
19,
got.
14 days.
Okay.
So there's no, you don't need to purchase a 14-day, you just need to have a permit, right? There's no money,
You need to have a permit to pay for it.
you don't pay for it.
So just for the safety check-in property.
Yeah.
And I think the intent behind that was, once again, it's someone that lives here and they wanted to help themselves be able to pay their taxes, but last I knew was it running about 50-50. People that don't live here, they're unhosted, are taking advantage of the 14 days. Well, or how did that work?
We feel like there might be some, but I feel like when we pulled that list, we really know a lot of the people on it.
Okay, good.
But for sure, our building department position, and I think the town's position is in agreement that we are saying, get rid of the no charge to a 14-day or less permit. You either have a permit, you're renting and you get a permit, or you do not.
So anyone currently with a 14-day permit, if we follow the town's model, would now, at least for us, be able to go to 90 days and they would be paying for a permit.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't be able to get a permit if they're in town or village residential.
What if they have one today?
They can
On
still
14 day.
renew.
They could renew it into a regular one.
It would be what is the term, Jack?
As long as that's an option.
Oh,
that's fine.
what, unhosted?
No, not about hosted. They would be allowed to renew, and it would instead be called
Oh, capped?
capped, non-compatible district. Town residential,
That's a town,
village
right, that's a
residential,
town.
yeah. So yes, they could renew and it would be non-compatible, so when it's sold, no new permit.
It's okay.
Does everyone agree with that?
Make them pay a fee,
Yes.
like everybody else.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just simplify.
This is kind of scary. We'll be here all night if we keep this up.
There's a lot of cheating going on there today.
You don't know
No, I don't. I can't do.
that.
Are you making ultimate too, so I don't need some?
Yeah.
Give them a chance. It seems to be human nature.
Your guess is how much further?
Okay.
We like that word non-compatible.
I do. I like that, non-compatible.
Well, by non-compatible just means that when they sell it, it no longer can be a vacation rental, right?
If you're in a
Right.
residential district, because residential districts and
Whether it's
STRs are
village or town.
non-compatible.
Okay, good, I like that.
The public likes it.
You've got on here next enforcement.
What's something we talked about yesterday?
Trusts.
Is there anything really to talk about at this point? No.
Not at this point, although we are making headway with enforcement.
Upper Parkside again.
Yeah, we do need to.
What about before that, though, districts? Or is that,
I think
We
Village
just,
Center, we just did all that, right?
did Village Center, but we didn't talk about Upper Parkside needs.
Well, we decided that 3 weeks ago.
Oh, we talked about
We
it.
talked
Today's
about it, I
our
don't
day to
think
pull
we
things
came
together.
into it.
Darcy was here and we said, leave it alone, because it's only one apartment, is
Okay.
one STR is allowed now, is what the conclusion was.
Mhm.
And then we said that's,
Leave it alone?
because then the apartments are going to stay, the existing apartments that we have.
Well,
we have the one.
If I'm not mistaken, at least I know Dean's recommendation was to make Upper Parkside just like Village Center, correct?
That's what you were
Village
saying.
residential,
I thought it was just like Main Street.
it is currently Village Center.
Okay, so we're gonna turn it into Village.
That would,
But no, so
No.
this is, it is Village Center,
Okay.
but it's not on Main Street. It's Parkside. It is subject to a maximum of one permit,
and
90 days. So that's where you guys had said, leave it
Yeah.
alone.
We all
Alright,
shook our heads and said,
Yeah, no, that's
okay,
great.
so
Okay.
leave it alone.
cross it off.
Geez, we could be leaving here early today.
Back to back
James
James.
is right. Station Street, Lisa G's over to, I assume, the train tracks.
what did we,
Well, we talked about that
There's
as
4 or
well.
5 houses there that, do we want those to become commercial? 'Cause right now it's mostly commercial.
it
The
is,
churches and everything.
right.
But there's still 4 or 5 properties in there.
And in looking forward, what the rail trail becomes, and we had heard that there was going to be a bike shop potentially in an empty lot, so again, currently it is Village Center,
Yes,
so leave it alone, because it would be one unit and it would be 90 days.
yes,
Just like Upper Parkside.
Yep,
yes.
What's everyone think about that?
So,
leave it alone.
so wait, that's up to Trillium, correct?
Right,
Okay.
right.
This side of the tracks. Okay. That brings us down to our PDs and homeowners associations. You've all got it there, Pine Hill Beach, River Bend, Knollwood, Lake Placid Club Lodges. Lake Placid Club Lodges, as you're going up Darcy Olympic Drive on your left, what are they? Not the attached, not the time sharing that's up across from the golf house, but the part where it drives in and goes towards the Hampton, or just above the Hampton. What is this, which is that called? Is that Lake Placid Club Lodges, or where are they?
I believe that's what that is called, Lake Placid Club Lodges.
So half of them are owned and 15 units are owned, the others are.
You're talking about the ones across from the golf house and between the golf house and Mirror Lake Drive, those are Morningside townhomes.
Morningside Townhomes.
So there's two there, Janet. The ones that are kind of fronting Morningside Drive, are they still timeshare? There's like, what, 4 or 5 of them there? And then they're the ones that you have to drive back in where Linda Friedlander purchased one years ago. Does anybody know which that is?
Well, I counted, and I think what Janet is referring to is Morningside Townhomes. There are 15 units that are personally owned.
So as you're coming up Morningside Drive, you have to drive in.
Yes.
That's the ones that are called.
Morningside Town,
Go up and take a left.
And how many are in there total? I bet there's more than 15, so.
15 that, according to Essex County, are personally owned. They're owned,
Wow.
they're townhomes.
So the rest of what's in there
Are
is
fractional or time
fractional
shares.
ownership. Okay, wow, okay. So that is the Lake Placid Club Lodges then? That's
Yes.
One is, okay. All right, at least we know what it is. And Knollwood, that is?
That's behind Grandview. So off of Hillcrest, Grandview, you go down that hill.
Towards West Valley?
Yeah, they're kind of like, and they're like behind the Copperwood, the
Yeah, my
women's.
brother stayed down there for a wedding.
Yeah.
And River Bend, we know where that is.
Yep.
Beach Hill, we know where that is, and Pine Hill.
Um,
Do we know how many current vacation rentals are in any one of those, or does that even matter?
Yes, I can tell you, Pine Hill, so there are 2 phases, there's Pine Hill number 1 and Pine Hill number 2. Pine Hill number 1 has 38 total units, and 13 of them are STRs. Pine Hill number 2 has 60 units, and the total number of STRs is 18.
What was number 1 again, Jim?
38.
38 and 13. Riverbend has 2. I do not know how many total units Riverbend has. Maybe you know? Water's Edge, there's 16 units and 4 of them are STRs.
Water's Edge.
Water's Edge, you know, we're off of
River
Victor Road.
Baptist Church.
I don't have that one on my,
Harbor, the Harbor, there are 36 units and 10 are STRs.
I'm sorry, we didn't have those categories.
We didn't.
Harbor and what else? What was the other one you mentioned just before that?
Water's Edge.
Water's Edge.
And can you give me the total number again and the number of STRs?
Water's Edge, there were 16 and 4 of them are STRs. Harbor is a total of 36 and 10 are STRs.
Okay,
Hang on. Swiss Road, I think there's 8 in Swiss Road and 3
Swiss Road. That's,
by Bergamini's.
yeah, okay. I'm sorry. What again? Do you have those off the top of your head?
8 and
3.
8 and 3, 8 and 3.
Okay.
No, 8 and 4.
Right.
8 and 4. Yeah, and there was. That's, I think it's.
I did not realize that there were only 15, so it's just that 15 on the left as you pull
It's
into
3,
Lake
5,
Placid Club.
Yep,
It's just those on the left, everything else is fractional ownership.
yep.
Wow, did not realize that. And do we have numbers on those 15? How many are,
No,
no idea of how many, if there are any vacation rentals there?
I'm looking at, I don't see anything on this list with a Morningside Drive address. So it's possible that none of them are STRs.
And then Knollwood, how about that one? Out of 14, is there?
Nope, I don't think anything are. We have anything there? Funny thing, Beach Hill, according to Brett, it's a homeowners association, it's not condos or townhomes. There are no STRs in the village portion of Beach Hill.
How about that?
And I said, are you sure? She goes, yep. So all the STRs are on the town.
Didn't the gentleman that was here?
I know.
Remember, no, not only that,
Oh.
remember he said the association has nothing, only for the access to the.
To the beach,
And only
correct.
some of those
Right,
places
right.
have. So the association doesn't cover most of the, or I don't know how many,
Right.
only a percentage of the properties.
What
Because
you're
the
saying,
association only has to do with the rights to the beach.
Right.
That's the only reason for the association.
isn't that interesting? Okay.
So it wouldn't, or
Not all the properties can go to the beach.
And so if what Britt says is right, and he was wrong, he would not have been in the village, correct?
That's why I questioned it. I said, Brett, the gentleman came here representing himself as the president of the homeowner. Are you sure there's no STRs? And she goes, yep, I'm pretty sure. But again, this is where we're finding out the faults in this platform. So,
Maybe he doesn't have an up-to-date permit.
possible.
So when you say there's 60 homes in Beach Hill and 18 are STRs, those are all in the town if what we're getting is accurate, correct?
Yes, there's, I think, 39 total homes in Beach Hill.
Okay, you gave me 60 before.
I did.
That was for Pine Hill.
Oh, those are the two together, phase one, phase two.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, phase 2 is 60.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I get it.
I guess the real question is, what, do we want to restrict the STRs there?
But it is interesting to see how few there are in those places. Everyone keeps talking about the horses out of the barn. It sounds like here's a case where it isn't.
Unless they went without permits.
Well, yeah, right?
Does anyone have a suggestion? I mean, do we take all these differently or do we take them all as one? Does anyone have an opinion on if we keep them? I'm pretty sure, I know Pine Hill and Dean's suggestion was to keep that village residential. Do you remember what the others were? Does anyone know?
You mean what districts are in?
Whether they're in village residential?
Well,
maybe?
Riverbend is in village residential.
Okay,
Knollwood is in village residential.
okay.
Beach Hill is in village resident, right?
But it's town residential in the village, I think.
No, it's
Just
both.
because for bigger guys.
It's both. Or is it,
But he's just going by lot
It is,
size.
no, God, that's South Lake. Beach Hill is in
South Lake? I still want the homeowners association to deal with STRs.
Yeah, I don't want to go there.
Plus, it's been de facto, that's the way it's been. It's what we allowed to this point.
Oh, but everything's been that way, so the whole village.
Well,
No, we're not changing most of them, one by one, we haven't changed hardly anything.
Okay.
should we just, is this where a cap could potentially come into play, or moving it to just one event? One, like say Pine Hill or.
I don't think anyone in
I
those,
think you need to.
I don't think anyone there is big enough to have more than one potential vacation rental.
But there, eventually somebody who's big enough could come in and buy.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking of places like, in Pine Hill, if you own a place, it's not big enough to divide it into two vacation rentals.
But you could buy 2 or 3 or.
Right, but if you did, they'd all be individual ones. They'd be separate permits.
That's what I'm saying, do we want to restrict it just to a permit?
So then you're just having someone have their brother put it in one name, sister put it in another name.
More work.
But they'll get around it. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
I think the other intent was if you have a house that has 3, like a duplex,
Okay. So,
just my
so
thought.
just a cap, we'll come back to the cap.
So is that everyone at this point then willing to take all of those issues, Harbor Lane, Water's Edge, Swiss Road, Pine Hill, Beach Hill, Riverbend, Knollwood, and Lake Placid Club Lodges, and leave them alone, let them fend for themselves? Is that what you're saying?
I am.
Yes.
Because they all have homeowners associations.
Yeah, they're
Just
pretty
seems
active
consistent.
homeowners, and they, I know you talked that Pine Hill, being affordable homeowner used to be, but, I mean, the homeowner's fee is, aside from your mortgage, you're gonna be paying an additional $600 a month. I don't think, yeah, you got the homeowner, I mean, you gotta pay for the common maintenance. So, I just don't think Pine Hill was ever gonna be affordable. So, and, you know, they have very active homeowners associations. I know this because all of these people have annual meetings, and they're on top of it. And if things get out of hand, I'm sure they will.
Well, I think a little bit also what you're saying is that right now, if you, let's pick on Jason because he's here, you don't want someone next door to you with a vacation rental keeping you out parking on your yard, obscenities, but if you buy into any one of these groups, it's up to the homeowners association to stop people from parking and police their own.
At the very minimum, the recommendation that's given to the public, if anyone from Pine Hill or the others are having concerns, that would be a time to speak up on it.
Okay, do we leave it at that, or do we talk to them? That was a question we had before. I mean, we can go one of two directions. I can see, we can talk to them and see what they want, or we can just let them figure it out on their own, let them do deed restriction. Same, Mark? Jackie?
Yeah.
Okay. Jason? Okay.
You rent your condo? Yeah. Yeah. You have a permit? Yeah.
Edge Lake is here.
No, I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's there. Oh,
It's Water's Edge is there.
who's Edge of the, is that you?
It used to be.
Used to be.
There's none on there. And at least back 3 years ago, all but one or two were renting. I don't know about now, I have no idea.
So you don't see an
One of six. Huh? Just one of six. Is renting, that's it? Really? Oh, good, that's good news. I like that.
Okay, so we're gonna take all the ones we just talked about and leave that up to the homeowners, right?
Yes,
Okay,
the HOA, yes.
homeowners association,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
My point is, I think Brett's got something missing here still.
I agree with you.
It's a start.
Yeah, I mean, it gives us a good ballpark, and it's probably not that far off.
Well,
There's two right there.
So I guess what we're asking then, is that number of 221 accurate?
I'm gonna go with no.
But how far off is the question?
Is it like within 2%?
Well,
Do we have the technology to know exactly?
we're hoping for that, I mean, but based upon what she gave us as active yesterday, we were at 250. And now as
But she went through to pull out the duplicates of people that
Right.
applied and people that,
she pulled out the duplicates, but yet I still found one from Patch Lane that I called her on. You were telling me Wayne should have one, Mark's not on there, so we need to.
What was the Water's Edge one?
No, Edge of the Lake.
Oh. What's the
Would that
address
be a
on that?
Main Street address? What's-
221 Saranac Avenue.
So,
2221.
2. Let's see.
are they all the same there?
Yes, just with a letter.
2221, I see 2215,
2221.
2221.
2221.
They had the permit. I can show it to you.
I believe you, this is just us trying to see what this program is not doing or doing.
Edge of Lake LLC. It's on the map.
It's on the STR map?
It's got 6 condos within the association.
Oh, okay, right here.
And it's just, they all have tax ID numbers, so they don't pay property taxes.
Mark, what was your address?
2491.
2491, okay.
I'm just, I don't know. Well, I pulled up on Airbnb, like trying to narrow it down to one little area, and it's like 350 stays. And that's just on Airbnb for a platform. Real narrow area too.
Now the last topic is cabs.
Yep, it is, isn't it? which is where we started. But I guess we now know we're no longer at 197, maybe we're at 221.
Much more.
And I guess, does a cap really even matter if we're going to no longer allow people in village residential or town residential, and you can be on the Main Street corridor and you can be in a homeowners association? What difference does a cap make?
The town cap,
What's that?
the town.
Right, but what are you
has done
actually
cap.
capping? So the only place that you could actually go into, what we're saying now, I guess, is that if you wanted to be a vacation rental, you'd have to attack either Pine Hill, Beach Hill, all the ones we talked about. Because at least the way we're talking, they can have them.
Well, I think what was different between the town and the village is that there are no new permits for town residential unhosted.
Okay, so give me an
So-
example of.
But they can, so we need a cap to say to keep it from.
Let's do it as building permits for town.
Okay,
Well,
hang on,
no,
do you want me to
you-
read the language,
You can have a
Jason?
hosted, you can have a hosted.
Let me-
If we could, before you read that, so I can keep up.
Okay,
They want to cap hosted?
there is no such thing as hosted.
They're getting rid of that, they're getting rid of that.
Oh, there's no such thing as,
They're getting rid of that
so
designation.
why cap it? No.
Well, but I guess what I'm getting at is right now, if we put a cap in place, does that mean if you wanted to go into Pine Hill, buy a place and get an STR, you couldn't get one?
If you want it to be permitted.
No, but I'm saying if we put a cap, that would mean they couldn't, correct?
Depends on
Right,
the
because they
number.
still have to get permits to rent Pine Hill.
And they wouldn't be able to get them, right?
Well, it's
Yeah,
visit
we put a
village
cap on it.
residential.
But didn't we just say that we were going to allow them there?
That's correct. Oh, so unfettered growth, is that what
Well,
you're
that's,
saying?
that's
Okay.
why I'm trying to
So-
figure out what you guys have decided. Are you deciding that we're not going to regulate it, just like Main Street and the homeowners associations? And if that's,
As far as new permits,
yeah, is that the case?
or the woman in the condo with her, that we denied her term request.
Well, which way are you guys talking? Are you talking that, like, let's say we get all done with this, someone wants a vacation rental permit in Pine Hill, are you going to allow it?
I've been thinking about this the last half an hour here. That's the exact question.
I mean, so unless we put a cap in place, you have the answer is yes, correct?
I believe so.
In the harbor and everybody else. So the cap, if we did it, that's really the only place it would apply, because we're not going to cap Main Street corridor, right? At least that's my understanding of the way everyone talked.
Well, it could be part of the overall number, because that's what we're looking at the cap just as always.
Well, is that what you guys were talking about? Are you talking about capping anyone on the Main Street from Rooster or Town Hall to?
Well, I think a
So-
cap's a cap, it's just the amount of permits that are allowed.
I know you,
What's
let
the
me,
town doing with Whiteface?
I'm going to, hey,
You're gonna read something.
all right, yeah, I'm gonna read something. Capped STRs, this is the town's logic. Capped STRs, which is a combination of everything, will be limited to 190. There are currently 170 permits
They're going above.
in the capped and non-compatible districts. Number of capped permits will be limited. The number of lodging, this is what I don't understand. The town board will set the number of permits each year at its organizational meeting. This is what they
Yeah, it does,
discussed.
because the number was slightly bigger, so there could be some growth to be
In
issued.
the town.
In the town.
So as some switch, then you're on the waiting list, that permit disappears.
Okay.
and Another one opens up for one of the other zones.
So they have two types of permit. They have lodging and capped. There are lodging areas. The Whiteface Inn PD is a lodging area. They must demonstrate they are part of an active HOA. Existing condos and townhomes and their approved build-out must just demonstrate they are part of an active HOA. Old Military, lots with road frontage on Old Military Road and Gateway Corridor, lots of road frontage on Cascade Road, Sentinel Road, Wilmington Road, and 86 and Raybrook. So those will be allowed lodging permits. Correct, Jason? I mean,
It sounds familiar.
okay. I know. This is-
Because there's a lot of goes on.
Yeah, I hear you. No,
Is there a cap
I'm
or
not.
isn't there a cap?
All right, so the capped districts. Help me, I mean,
Yes.
okay, the capped districts are rural countryside.
Yeah.
Deerwood Hills is rezoned from rural countryside to town residential. North Lake.
Yep.
South Lake.
Yep.
Old Military, lots without road frontage on Old Military. Gateway corridor, lots without road frontage on above listed corridors.
Yeah, if you're not frontage, if you're being.
Townhomes and condos that are not part of an active HOA. Not. Whiteface in the planned development that are not part of an active HOA. So what the town is saying is they've got to demonstrate their HOA is active.
I don't know if they talked about any metrics that would designate.
You know, who knows? But, if you're gonna, don't you have to get this through the state? Homeowners association and condominiums all have to be approved. So, you've got to have annual board meetings, you got to be pretty active.
Yeah.
The non-compatible districts, which will not, I'm not reading this right, the non-compatible districts are town residential and village residential in the town.
Yep.
Residential planned developments like Fawn Valley, The Peaks, Mackenzie Overlook, and Fawn Ridge 2. Existing STRs in these districts can continue to operate until there is a change of ownership. Change in ownership is defined as any change into a trust, new members of the LLC, etc.
Yep.
How many STR permits does the town have? Do you know off the top of your head?
I thought you just said 170.
Yeah.
No, that's not total though. Oh, I don't know if I have that number.
Do we have the
I don't
ability to
have
have
that.
those numbers crunched for us?
220, let's say 220-ish.
Okay. We should,
I mean,
I think Emily and I need to sit with Britt and just say, this is what we're finding. How do we get the right numbers off of this platform?
Well, remember yesterday?
right, but then Britt was going to go back through review and get rid of the duplications, but
Yeah,
before we make a termination,
So-
at one point we thought we only had 197 and we thought it was 250 and now we're down to maybe 221.
Yeah.
We're seeing some are missing. Is that possible? We
Yes.
could get Britt to
Yes.
crunch those numbers?
What do you
this
want?
is what she spent a week doing, is crunching these numbers and compiling this.
But do we already find two that are there?
But we
that are
already-
on there?
Yeah, so I
I know.
sent her a message as to like, hey, what's the difference? So, we don't know
I know.
exactly.
I know.
And we asked the guy from the system
Yep,
yesterday,
yep.
hey, what's this? He said, it's an anomaly, we don't know, he'll look into it, so I'm not
We just
putting it,
found 3 anomalies.
yeah.
So you're looking for more refined number to base the cap.
And do you want it by type and by district?
I guess at this point, it'd just be nice to have a total in the village. But we're starting to think it's not 221, correct?
No, we think that's pretty accurate.
Oh, okay. Except for the,
So I think the number that you had with the 197 or whatever it was, I believe Mike pulled that number based on a report of active, whereas he didn't realize Britt pulled the number of active and pending. Pending happens, that status happens when you are due for a renewal in that month. So sure enough, I don't know if he was pulling that in June. We had a lot of renewals in June, that time frame. So the 190, could we have had 25, 30? Absolutely. So I think that's a difference there. The 250 number seems to have a bunch of duplicates in it. So that's what Britt weeded out to get to more the 220 number.
so when you say active, there are people that are waiting for their permits to come online, but they're not active currently?
They are currently
There's the
active, but the
renewal
system
process.
changes that status to pending because they have to renew.
Okay.
So
A
I
month
think,
out, we'll say, or whatever, they go into a pending,
Right.
and that's where it didn't pick it up. I get you. Okay.
yeah, and there are different, so yesterday at this meeting, Mike said, oh, I only pulled active, I didn't pull active plus pending. So that's where I think the lower number
Okay.
started.
And then let me jump back and clarify, because it seems like every time I asked, you guys said no. So if we put a cap, and let's just say right now we pick 220, is that going to apply to the Main Street corridor? Somebody on the Main Street corridor, when we're all done, wants one, we say no until 2 people disappear somewhere? Is that what we're saying?
I think it should apply to the whole entire community, and then that's how we can create a baseline of what's going on.
But every time we talked, you two said you shouldn't be regulating the Main Street corridor to Main Street. Leave them alone.
That's
leave
what
them
I
alone,
said,
don't
but if you
regulate.
applying a cap's totally different.
Okay,
Applying a cap is a,
but
But
I mean, you guys are pretty emphatic.
in today's number.
exactly.
We have to know today's.
Well, no, why does the cap have to be larger than today's number?
Because we have some
So,
structures being built now because they're gonna be vacation rentals. Spending a whole lot of money, and then you're gonna tell them, sorry, you have to wait till somebody goes away.
Well, but that's the idea of a cap. That's why I'm asking the question. And I guess the only place the cap, well, I guess it doesn't apply only to the Main Street corridor now, because it could be in any one of the,
In the whole gateway.
And if there's new, if like you can have a hosted from village residential, then there's no, you can have a proliferation of short-term rentals in that vein. So there's no cap to kind of preventative measure or management tool.
so what you're saying is we look at capping by district?
can
Or
we do
just,
that?
I don't know if we can do that.
Okay. Well, residential is gonna fix itself.
Right.
Okay, so we're just talking about, basically, and are we talking about
Homeowners
condos or not?
associations and Main Street.
Yeah, it's homeowners associations and the corridor. Do we take them separately as far as the cap or no? I don't know the answer. I mean,
Is that something we can answer today? We need a week to think about it. I mean, we've made great progress, but if this is an important one, we probably shouldn't rush it.
Oh, hi. Oh, you know, guys, I hear you. I know, you can only do what you can do.
Thank you.
I get that, believe me. I've worked with these programs, Britt. I know.
So I have a conference with with you and you guys tomorrow about something else, so I'll bring it up.
Yeah.
Why are things not showing up on the list? They should be showing up on the list.
Right.
But yes, they are both active, and actually, Mark, you're good until next year.
So it was just the numbers were transposed, probably.
Who knows? You know,
It's your first foray into it, so.
Yeah,
there's some sort of-
Exactly.
And the other one is also the other one, he actually hasn't renewed.
Wayne is good till what, end of September, you
Yeah.
said?
Yeah, so who knows? Maybe that was why.
So Britt, this number of 221 in the village, do you think that's pretty accurate?
Oh, I do.
Okay,
I mean,
that's what we were
you know,
trying to get to.
there could be a few, I wouldn't think there was more than just a few that were off.
Okay,
But
that's good.
if you think, like you said, if you think of more, you say, hey, this should be on here, we can check it against the program.
Believe me, no fault on you. This is just the program.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm having a conference with them tomorrow, so I'll bring it up.
I mean, and you're gonna probably find more stuff, and then we may have to say, is this program really worth it? If you've gotta spend X amount of time going through to double check to make sure that, that's crazy. Either it works or it doesn't. And this program's not cheap. It's 40 grand.
Yeah.
I mean,
And when he said he updates it periodically, and first one we found, he hadn't done in a year,
yeah,
so. I think I might have an answer to the cap number.
Oh, sure.
Well, but we have just, last time we had talked about a public or a town hall meeting so we could let people come in and talk. I mean, we've gotten some pretty good ideas. Did we miss anything, by the way? Are we hit most of the topics?
I think
we have to. So maybe our next step is to have a town hall meeting, let people come in and talk, and maybe at the end of that, we'll have a pretty good idea what the cap ought to be. I mean, all we would really be doing anyhow is if we did throw a cap number out there, would be a recommendation, but maybe the answer on that is don't. Let's wait and hear what the public has to say.
I'm good with that.
I want to make a recommendation and have a rationalization for it, and then the public can weigh whether that is kind of what they would like to go in that direction. Because I think that would draw out the extremes where it's like no cap to like 25, so.
I mean, no matter what we put in place, we can, we can always change, but.
All right, you want to ask some of the
Well, does anyone have a thought on the cap? I mean, Peter, you said leave room for growth. Do we want to do that, or are we trying to whittle this number down?
Me personally, I'm trying to whittle village residential down.
And town residential,
And town residential.
which I think we've accomplished, or kind of accomplished.
Although, Darcy, is Pine Hill development, is that right now considered village residential?
Pine Hill, yes.
And association.
Okay, but yet
So we could weed those out. Well, we actually kind of did that. Village residential, I think my quick number was 129, but she has specified who the condos are, so we could cull those out of there and get to,
It was like 90 something.
Was the condo number?
Was the village residential, yes. 2 meetings ago.
are there any of those developments that are not in village residential, Darcy? Meaning, like Placid Club Lodges, Knollwood, Harbor Lane, Water's Edge, Swiss Road. Beach
so
Hill.
91 I got for you, Peter. Village residential that's not a condo or townhome with an HOA. Okay. Artie, what was your?
So I'm sorry, what was that number? It's 90 that are what?
91.
91 or what?
Village residential,
Village
not a
residential.
condo.
Or HOA.
Because that doesn't include town.
That's village residential
No, but
district.
town residential.
So town residential would be,
That's a confusing name, isn't it?
would be 17 are in town residential district, not part of a condo or townhome.
So 88, is that really what we're talking? People that are in.
91
Right,
plus
but then town
17
residential is 17, so are we
Plus
talking?
17.
plus
which is-
108.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, it'd be 108, right?
Yep.
And that means that they're not on the Main Street corridor, they're not on the Gateway corridor, they're not in a
Or whatever.
homeowners association.
What was the town's name from? Non-compliant.
Non-compatible.
Non-compatible. So we have 108 that are non-compatible, and that's really the number we're looking to
Including the town.
get. Well, but I mean, in our own village, that's the number that we're looking to have disappear and find elsewhere to go or whatever. Am I getting that right?
But don't forget,
I probably am.
out of these 108, some are hosted.
Okay.
So, and we
Well, there's a total
agreed,
of 28 hosted. So, yeah.
so take the 28, I mean, we agreed that we wanted to keep hosted in village residential.
So the problem isn't as big as we're making out, is that what you're saying?
No, did I say that? I didn't say that. Was I saying that,
According to
Peter?
Jason.
Well, I don't want to make any recommendations.
He's part of the problem.
That collapses the whole accounting.
Well, but then if I'm doing my math right, then we come down to 80. Is that correct? That are not in homeowners associations, not on the Main Street,
Non-compatible.
not on the Main Street corridor, and not posted. It comes down to 80. Is that what everyone?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Does that bring us any closer to having a number, what the cap would be?
I guess my 2 cents on the cap is what I come back to. I think the market's going to dictate how many STRs are within the village lines based on what is left available. Pine Hill's not going to turn all into STRs just because we make this change in the law. It's going to be whatever the market dictates. Do we need more? Do people think they can make money on it? Or do they think that
Well, that train of thought, do people think they can make money, is what we're trying to correct,
oh yeah,
right?
but
So-
also, like I said again, it's a business. Do people think they can make enough money on this bid to buy a $700,000 house and vacation rental out? Or is the market flush already with them?
So, to dovetail off what you were saying, Emily had mentioned that, and I think the town board adopted, they don't want people just to hold the permit. They want people to, if you're gonna get a permit, you have to actually start getting into the mix of things.
Oh,
So,
because there are people who have gotten permits just because they think they may want to do it?
yeah.
Well, they're afraid that the moratorium will say no more.
Right.
Do you have any
That's-
feel for how many of those are out there, Darcy, roughly?
We don't have a feel for that.
Do you think it's 10, 20, any guess even? Hard to know, huh?
Yeah, hard to
Okay.
know.
But just kind of going back to Mark, I think if we put an overall number, much like the town, then we can kind of, it would give you something to reference each year as you reevaluate. Is it like, are you too restrictive or non-restrictive enough?
Yeah, do you have a waiting list of
Yeah.
60?
Yeah,
And is
so-
that ridiculous, or is it not really a problem?
So Janet had given me, asked me to reach out to Durango, Colorado, because they actually have more people on their wait list than they do permits.
Wow.
I still will reach out to them to say, how are you managing it? But, they've got twice as many people waiting to get a permit. I thought at one point we had talked, obviously we were not going to allow any more STRs in village residential unless it was hosted. And as that permit, if there's 80 permits and somebody gives up theirs, so we're down to 79 in village residential, and we have one left, we were going to take that and put it where we want it to be, like in village center.
I guess
It would automatically go there if there was a cap.
in theory, but if.
Okay, it would automatically go there if it was a cap.
But if you wanted to have it unhosted, the way that we've all, like it's been agreed upon, if you wanted it hosted in village residential, you would be on the waiting list because that's allowed. So you're not really.
So that permit-
Any unhosted
okay.
where.
So if a permit is lost in village residential and there's somebody waiting that wants a hosted in village residential, it would go to that.
Whatever, they're depending on where they are
Okay.
in the queue.
Does that go against, at least what my thought was, we're trying to help people buy homes that live here, that want to live here. Does that go against that? Because now they have to wait for a permit to open up. They can't buy a home. I'm just throwing devil's advocate at you. I mean, take the house across from you.
I don't know.
If they
I know
want to
they're
buy that
planning on
house, they
renting
can't
apartment.
afford the price of it, but there's a place upstairs, they want to run a vacation rental, they've got parking, they're going to keep it quiet, and it's a way for them to buy and actually live here. Do we want to limit that?
But I guess it's if it's, we have the primary, it's your primary residence, then.
But if we have a cap on the permits, is what.
Then they have to-
Well,
I guess-
then do we increase
then you-
hosted in village residential? Like,
Oh, in other words, okay, so let's go, with I think what you're saying is let's have caps by all 3 districts.
I know we want to keep it
At
simple,
least let's
but
talk about it.
we can't, because we're saying we want to allow this, and then yeah, we have to have a unique cap for each.
I'm not opposed, but maybe that's a Janet question, whether we can differentiate legally.
You're right, we talked,
But let's just talk about it for a second, because we seem like we're coming down to 3 areas. Hosted, in village residential,
Right.
town residential, we're talking about planned developments, and we're talking Main Street and Gateway Corridor. Those are the 3 areas we're talking about. Let's take them one by one. Are you looking at a cap that would just blanket all 3? Or would you take that Main Street corridor and leave them alone, or would you put a cap on it?
I want to back
Sure.
up one step.
That's okay.
Why
Go
can't
ahead.
we put a cap on unhosted permits? If we're saying a hosted permit is the owner has to be there, just have the cap apply to unhosted permits.
Okay.
okay,
And as long as, for the moment, we're talking hosted, means you live there. if you're-
Exactly.
right,
you're-
And
Okay.
that
it's your
solves the
legal,
problem.
That village residential, that's capped already.
No,
but we're
No,
not
we're
allowing
talking-
any unhosted in village residential.
no, you could have another 25.
I know, that's what I'm saying, so it's already, it's capped, because we're not allowing it anymore.
Yeah, but we're allowing you to be hosted.
Anyway,
So that's the one thing, that's the one thing that got me, is like, no new unhosted is not the same as no new short-term rentals. You're allowing a short-term rental, even though it's a hosted.
So just don't cap hosted.
Well, that's kind of where we're trying to split the hairs here.
I think it would just be easier, and I don't know the legal can we cap on hosted and
So
not
just
cap?
cap.
I don't think you can take unhosted and do what you want with it. And let's kind of ask that question in straw polls. Everyone kind of at the point where they're saying a hosted property can be in a village residential or village center or anywhere, and there's no cap on it. I mean, is that the goal we're looking for, is to get people to buy homes and move into the area? Because if not, we're not affordable. You're going to end up with second homeowners, or you're going to end up with.
I'm all for a cap for the whole entire thing, and then, and that's just the way to, I guess that's the only way to really.
So then depending on where you put the cap, somebody that wants to buy the house that was across the end that has a nice apartment up above and make it a vacation rental so they can afford a $650,000 home, and we hit the caps below it, we just tell them, sorry, not going to happen for now.
I think
Because that could
at
happen.
some point, there's gotta be some sort of pain, and I think if you just draw a line, and then you had said you're gonna reevaluate each year, and you would have the data sitting there going, this is the number, this is what people wanted, then you can make that sort of decision. Without that, I don't know how you can make that decision.
But we've also come to the point where everyone's saying, no matter what we do, even if houses can't be STRs, it evaluates the price of a house, and you're coming to the point where can people afford it? And the answer is no. What other pathway do they have forward than to buy a house and turn part of it into a vacation rental, live there, keep the noise down, have the parking, but it gives them a way to buy a house and we have a person living here. Otherwise, we don't have anybody. Am I making any sense, or am I just chasing my tail?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, so just sorry, one more point. The other opportunity, instead of buying a house and being a short-term rental, if you want to do that, you become a bed and breakfast instead. And this is what.
In village residential and the town residential?
Yes, it's allowed everywhere except North and South Lake. Bed and breakfast is a conditional use.
How would that help us, Annie? I mean, what would it do? When you have a bed and breakfast, you have to be on the property while it's rented?
Yes, so here's what
We're going to amend the language,
Right.
correct?
Here's what the current language says: a residential building in which the owner or operator resides in which rooms are offered for rent on a transient basis with breakfast typically provided. So now the new language is still that, with the addition, the owner operator must reside on the property full-time and be present when rooms are rented. The business must have an occupancy tax certificate from Essex County, which is what we require of the short-term rentals.
Would they also be expected to do breakfast?
No, it's just as breakfast typically, but there's
Okay.
no
And
requirement.
when you said occupancy tax, a bed and breakfast doesn't have to pay county and state tax?
We are not the taxing authority, so we're not
But
saying
right now,
anything about that.
if you have a bed and breakfast in the village, you
I'm
don't pay
I don't
county.
know.
Does anybody know?
I don't know.
I
Yes,
think the language is to be
Well,
more
but I mean, I would
specific.
consider them a
Right.
business, right? Doesn't New York State not consider a bed and breakfast a business? We don't know.
Does
Right, I mean,
Janet,
these are all great
Janet
questions.
still on?
No.
I think it was
No,
a way,
so
I
this
think
is
it was a way to make
Darcy,
it restrictive in
it's just-
language.
Well, it's gotta be the
Part of the
state.
wording is business, what you just read.
Emily was talking about that, so. I think
But I'm just
that's
curious, I mean, I assume that bed and breakfast
Town
is a
village,
business,
calling it
they should be paying tax like the rest of them.
Yes, bed and breakfast is a conditional use, gets reviewed by the review board, ultimately approved, and yeah, that's,
They should be paying county and state tax, right?
yes.
Okay.
Whatever taxes they're required to pay is what. And then the other bit about the occupancy tax for Essex County, that is what all short-term rentals are required to do, as well as,
But if you're a
Hotels,
business, then you're
motels.
expected to do all three taxes.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me this, what would be the difference or advantage, let's say we did take village center, town, village residential, town residential, and make them become,
I can answer this. So the benefit, so the bed and breakfast goes to the review board. They don't have to get any permits. So we're not getting any permit money. You can operate a bed and breakfast and you do not need to
well,
get an
but you're
STR.
also now a legitimate business.
Bed and breakfast does have to collect sales taxes.
That's
Who-
correct.
Okay, but
And they got a health department.
But they don't
inspection.
have to go through the STR permitting process. They go to the review board, get a conditional use, and
they pay their occupancy tax.
that's correct. And the STR compliance monitor will have no jurisdiction over them. Right. Because they do not have a permit.
That's fine.
they just become I don't want to use the word legitimate business, but I guess a vacation rental
Conditional
really
use.
isn't a, okay.
There was some concern that people might utilize this as a way to circumvent the situation.
But you also have to be on the property living, you've got to collect taxes, you've got to run as a
Yes.
business, you have to have health department inspections, you.
But this, it says owner or operator, so this goes back to what our definition of a
Yes, it does,
host is.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
It could be a person that someone buys it, puts somebody in, and they
Yeah.
don't live here.
They live there, but they don't own it.
And the owner operator must reside at least 9 months per calendar year.
It's an interesting wrinkle, isn't it? Good catch, Mark. What's anyone feel on that?
I'm still of the same opinion as you, just because I know that I know at least 5 people in my neighborhood who rent out short term so that they can pay their mortgage. And that's how they can afford to live here. And I don't want to take that opportunity from somebody who wants to move here full time. They want to rent out an apartment.
So
What's the total number of permits again?
wait a minute, so the 5 people you know, they don't get out of the house, they just rent out part of their house while they live there. Yeah, I just don't ever want to see that go away either. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What's the total number of permits that we're looking at again? For the whole entire village, not just village.
221 was it?
Yeah, 220,
In the village.
Maybe we just do 230. It's just a jumping off point. There's some room for growth. And there's some constraints putting in on most of the village. So it's like they'll let village residents know that we're going to manage that. There's 90 days.
So let's look at what you just said. Let's just do a what if. Okay, say we did go 230. That means you could have 9 more permits, but you could not get one in village residential or town residential. You could.
Unless it's hosted.
Unless it's hosted. And you could go into a condo or you could go to Main Street.
And then you can determine if those 9 disappear like that, then you reevaluate to say, hey, do we want to increase or is this where we want?
Yeah.
That seems to be the only controls that I see.
How hard is it to change that number? Is it
We
back
need
to
we
public
need an
hearing?
accurate number.
I don't know.
We need an accurate number on the total.
But we think we have it within 1 or 2, don't we?
Yeah, we're going basis on what Brett was saying. She said there's a handful here and there, but, okay, so there's 4 or less, so all of a sudden there's like
And
plus 10 permits to be given out.
can that number be set by resolution then, instead of being in the law?
I don't know, that's a question for Janet, right?
That was a good question.
Well, and do we want to do that?
Do what?
So, yeah.
I mean, no, I think you asked the question, can it be done by resolution instead of law? Do we want to make it that easy, or do we want public's input when we raise the cap? I mean, it's easier for
I
us.
mean, the first year, we can set the number, but then it can be adjusted by resolution.
But that's my question on that, is that really what we want? This whole board changes, do we really want it that easy? The town does, or the village taxpayer doesn't get a chance to come in and, you know, I'm just asking, it's a check and balance.
For changing fees, parking, that makes total sense by resolution, but I think the public hearing component would be more formal.
Change the law every time.
Well, it just makes it a little bit harder to do, that's all. It brings the public in and they get a chance to come look you in the eye and say, we don't want it, or we do.
Or why?
I think it's a valuable part of our village law, but just my opinion.
What if, okay, there's 9, the cap that we just talked about, and then there's 9 people just jump up and get a permit right that day
Because they can.
because they can. And then some legitimate people.
Well, and that puts us all back to, well, where would you want them? I mean, it sounds like everyone's trying to push a use to the Main Street corridor or Main Street. Do we want to restrict that at all? Do we want to have the cap be more somewhere else? I mean, is that?
Personally, I don't want to restrict that, personally.
Well, that's why I asked that question before, because that's where you guys were. Where are you on that?
As far as what?
Main Street and Gateway corridor, do you want to have a cap? Do you want to restrict them at all, or do you want to let the market bear what happens there?
My gut says to let the market there, but.
Okay, well, I asked that before, and then I asked it, you guys have changed your mind, but now you're going back again. Jackie, what do you feel on that one? Main Street corridor, do we leave that alone? Because otherwise, what you're looking to do is say, okay, here's a cap, and let's say we put it at what we've got, 221, and we wait for somebody that's in village center or village residential or town residential, and when one has gone there, they can move into the areas we want them. But that could take forever, and do we really want to turn down someone that might say buy the nice and easy property and turn it into something so it's not sitting there as a vacant building? Or the lady at the other end of Main Street here that wants to have a store and vacation rentals in it so she can make it work. Do we really want to limit those people?
What would be your solution to
Well,
cap it by zones? Like what is, I see the situation that you're presenting, and it's challenging, but how would you solve that?
so, okay,
Using the
let's just throw us a thought out there. We do not restrict the Main Street corridor or the Gateway corridor. We talk about if we want to have a cap, but that cap then would apply to basically just the, what are they called? Homeowners associations, is that correct? Because it's unhosted, we wouldn't cap, correct?
Right?
No, yeah, but I'm just saying the unhosted.
Hosted, we would cap.
I'm sorry, correct. Unhosted, we wouldn't, or hosted, we wouldn't cap. Is that correct? I mean, we don't have to come to a conclusion today, but it's just.
I see what you're saying, where if we put a cap on, there's going to be some sort of crunch potentially. But I don't see something wrong. I don't see anything wrong with that, because then you have a jumping off point to reevaluate your decision and then change as you see. But that's just me.
This whole process is not easy.
Oh,
I understand, but like,
but we were doing really good here in the beginning, but that's okay.
But if we have 30 people on the waiting list, then obviously, then it's up to the board to say, hey, this is, to reevaluate it. Is that the process? Yeah?
I think the expectation from the public, from half the public, obviously, is for us to manage growth. So
Mhm.
I think we should look at a cap.
Where? Define it. We have the 3 zones. You're gonna
Right.
put it on unhosted?
I think we should put it, I think a cap should be looked at overall, and then as permits become available, we only allow them in certain, the Gateway corridor, the village center, we only allow them.
Ideally, I would agree with you, Jack. I just,
Well, let's
what the
take a-
legality of that is.
Let's take
Right,
a
I don't get
possibility
right.
of what could happen. Let's say we cap it right now, 221, which we are.
Okay,
So that means somebody has to go away before someone else can
Right.
get one.
right,
But yet a house comes available in a village residential, and someone wants to come in, they want to rent out an apartment and make it a vacation rental so they can afford to buy it, we're stopping them, aren't we?
yes,
And is that what you want?
yes.
What we just talked about, we're trying to get people to live here.
I
It's
want
hard.
it for the first year. That, I think this
You're gonna
is the,
destroy our economy.
this is
Just
the
kidding.
expectation. I think this is the expectation from the public.
I think that's reasonable, personally. I think it's reasonable. Just having a cap, having some sort of sense of controls,
And-
without any sort of specific singling out anyone in, because I don't know how much
Well,
the municipality can do that.
and then the other question that we came up with is that we said that people that had homeowners association could rule themselves, but yet we're telling them they can't because there's a cap. Is that what we meant? I'm just playing devil's advocate with what's been said, but you're okay with that? You guys
Now I'm
can-
gonna go back and say, well, then I guess the cap in homeowners association, there's a cap in the homeowners
Okay,
association.
that's what I'm asking. So
Yeah.
you're still good with that? And you're gonna, so that's still,
For
okay.
the first year. They're expecting us to do something.
Okay.
They're expecting us not to have any new vacation rentals in town and village residential is
So,
what the
that-
main
that-
expectation.
That is the expectation, you're absolutely right, that is the expectation.
Have some
And then we
meaningful
either need to
controls.
prove to them that this is going to hurt us, or it's going to prove to us that this is the way we're gonna get life back into the community by people, by eliminating some of the high prices, making them affordable. It's gonna prove something, one way or the other. It might not take a year, maybe it takes 18 months, maybe it takes 2 years.
Okay, so The other thing that's going to happen is, like I say, we've got some good discussion on this. Even if we come up with something, doesn't mean it's set in stone, because we now bring in the public and let them tell us what they think of our decisions. And then we have another meeting to think about what we've been told. Do we want to throw a number out there yet, or do we want to wait on a cap? Do we make it 221? Do we make it 230? Anyone got an opinion on that? I can go either way. I don't really care, because it's all just something that's a starting point.
I think make it 230 because there's going to be a few more missing.
Well,
They didn't
you know,
catch.
I think so too. I mean, we even may want to make it, as you say, there are some that are coming online that we may need, you know, to host this event in January that, you know, they're pulling through, and maybe we should go to 240. How many units?
Is anyone old enough to remember 1980? I believe that anyone could rent their house out. It was a special law. Dispensation, right. I
The
mean,
Pope?
if you want to rent out, you could. That's also something we could do, isn't it? Not right?
Well, wouldn't that come under the non-existent 14-day rule?
Yeah,
The games, they're 14 days. Imagine that.
I guess I'd be fine with throwing out 240 if we're gonna put it to a public forum and we can go back and revisit.
Right. And you know, the people who show up, who tell us, you know, we're crazy and, you know, either we do more or we do less. I mean, we may find out we're too restrictive, we may find out we're not restrictive enough.
All right, so are we of the opinion we want to throw out a supposal cap number versus not throwing one out?
I would
I think
like to
it'll
put one
spend
in.
probably more discussion.
Give me a number.
So I originally it was 221, I said 230, and then,
What's your final number?
but I don't know the numbers. I don't.
I mean,
people
everyone's
coming
getting a
in,
number, we're going to average it.
But if like, I would say 240 would be the top end,
So you're saying 240?
would be the top end. 230 would be preferable, but if people
Which
are
one do you
aware of
want?
other things on,
You pick one, what do you want? 230 or 240?
I would like 230 personally.
Okay, Peter?
240.
40.
40.
This could be pretty easy then, just, fine, let's go with 240. I mean, like I say, it's not set in stone, it's just a starting point.
And that allows, well, say there's 19 permits to be had. The public might be going, this is insane.
I would just feel badly that if we all of a sudden got a bunch of people on the Main Street corridor that filled that in, and now someone wanted to buy a house and they couldn't. That goes against what I thought we were after, but that's just me.
They could still be a bed and breakfast.
And that wouldn't
It's
count
still doing
to any of this.
Right, that doesn't play into it.
And there's no permit fee collected.
That's correct.
And then what are you going to do now? Because these homeowners associations can now have vacation rental permits, and everyone goes, aha, and they jump right in there.
They could have it
those nights.
before.
What's that?
They could have it before this whole thing.
Right, but since
Now
the
they know
board,
there's a cap, so they might just want to get.
I'm just saying, what if they fill it up? Now someone can't go to the Main Street corridor, which is where we're trying to push people. I'm just trying to pick all the holes and everything we've decided. You can't change your mind until you have a decision, so we have a decision, now I'm trying to pick holes at it. But it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be solved today. Let's go to a public hearing and let's.
Okay,
town hall
so
meeting.
how much does a permit cost for a 3-bedroom unit?
Oh, you want to talk fees?
No, what I'm trying to see is how
4%.
much are people willing to spend?
500.
So if you're a Pine Hill, you're gonna look at buying into Pine Hill and you're gonna just buy a permit, it's $500. Would you spend that $500 just on the?
No, I mean, are they going to actually turn them into vacation rentals now that they?
But no, your question was, are they gonna buy them up just in case they ever?
No, that's not what I was saying. I'm just saying now that people are no longer worried, we're going to take away their ability to rent as vacation rental. Are you going to see a bunch show up in these areas that can have them? I don't have an answer. I'm just saying it's a what if.
I think that's what the
I
cap
would-
comes in.
Well, if there's a cap, you're kind of threatening to take it away.
Well, but if there's a cap and a bunch of people go into these areas that have homeowners associations.
Oh, all right,
now
when
we
did
stop.
we, I mean, up until 4 months ago, they were free to get permits, I mean, it's only 30%.
Like I said.
Online.
What's
For
that?
being insulted by her. Gallery.
Oh, are we?
Yeah,
What's wrong with
we'll read the comments after. They're being really nice.
Anyone that would like to come here and help us organize, please feel free. I mean, this isn't easy. If anyone thinks it is, sitting at home is very easy. You don't have to open your mouth. You don't have to state your opinion. Well, they're probably going to tell us we aren't allowed to open our mouths, but that's what the town hall meeting will be for. Let's hear what people have to say. When would you like to have that? As soon as we can.
Well, yeah, what is,
We'll
how?
have to talk to Anita and find out when we are,
Okay.
because it'll be public notices.
Because
And where
I
are we
asked
going to have it?
Emily, they're going to just provide the sort of the condensed, much like how, well, I say it's very similar to what Jackie, I don't know, Jackie has what Emily, I asked, are we going to have something that's unofficial but more fleshed out and written in legalese? Or the sort of the one sheet, and the town is going with what Emily created, the sort of the updates.
Well, I mean, Jackie's been very good to give us.
Oh, yeah, that's
what
we were.
what we've talked about today, because we made a lot of good decisions. I mean, we made a lot of decisions. We'll find out if the public thinks they're good or not.
Yeah. So maybe having that document provided to the public so that it could be a very directed conversation instead of having email when there's nothing specific they can attach it to.
All right, so as soon as we can have it in, where is the town having theirs? Is this mostly going to be an online event, or people are going
It's
to be?
going to be, I think they're scheduling it for the 30th.
And where are you
I'm
going
going to be in school, so I can't.
Where are you going to have it?
I think it's going to be here.
Be interesting to see how many people show up.
Or maybe they're going to have it at 3:30. I got kind of lost in the conversation.
The town I have notes on was August 31st at 4:30.
Of course.
But the public info session is August 23rd.
I'm sorry, say that
The
again.
public information session, where we're giving that recap of this is what we're talking about. They're presenting that August 23rd.
At what time do you know?
Tuesday.
So in other words,
That's a nine.
So in other words, they're throwing out what they're suggesting.
Yes.
A week before they're having their
Yes.
public hearing.
Yes.
Because it's going to, seems a little.
August 23rd, yeah, that's at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, and then
Here.
the 31st, and they're doing it in the evening time, 4 to 6:30.
Yeah.
Because there's the town workshop at 3:30, then we do from 3:30 to 4:30, the town workshop, and then public hearing after.
Yeah, 4:30.
So let's just take that as for the village side. If we did have let's say we did have an informational setting so people could hear what we're thinking, give them a week to think about it. We have a town hall meeting so people can come and speak, tell us what they think of our decisions. Would we be in a position to have a meeting a week later after listening to what everyone said, coming up with an answer and setting a law and having it in before the end of September?
Well, then we have to have a public hearing.
Oh,
And do we have to have a separate
yeah,
public
so we're
hearing?
back to number of days.
Do we have to have a separate one from the town, because we're not identical?
I would say we have our own, yes.
Well,
We did before.
we have to have a combined public hearing on changes to.
Okay, so what you're saying is no matter what we do, as fast as we want to move, which what I said was pretty quick, we still need to extend the moratorium because,
Mhm.
and if we're going to want a month, we may as well go for 3 months because we can always rescind it as soon as we want.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't, if that was I don't know, it's going down another 3 months without really any intention of going the distance, squeezing it in the next 2 weeks.
Well, like I say, when we started this whole process, it was vacation time. That held everything up 6 weeks. Then we had to wait for.
And the public hearing for the extension can be at one of our board meetings. It's just 15 minutes before the board meeting.
So that would be on the 6th.
When you say the public hearing.
For the extension of the moratorium.
Oh, yes. And also we could have our informational hearing at that time too, right? So it's just basically telling what we're thinking.
Yeah. Sure.
And is there comment in that?
Especially since our board meetings are so quick nowadays. Thank you.
Sometime where
Yeah, it's good. Idea.
everyone buying into this? So,
That's not for 2 more weeks though.
yeah, and
Yeah, it's
Want
the
to make it
6th.
quicker?
No, it's actually, it's 3 weeks.
But legally, if we put a notice out, I don't know what the time frame
I
is.
think it's 10 days.
But
it just has to be certain, it can't be less than.
We don't want to make
a
it
certain
3
time.
weeks from now.
Because if you're looking at the meeting, your first meeting is going to be Tuesday the 6th.
For what it's worth, I'm going to be gone somewhere between the 16th and the 21st or 22nd, because now when we come back from Torino with a fling, we're going to New York City as the latest talk and doing something down there. And just in case, I mean, depending on how things fall out here. And I guess I will be gone on the 18th. So you guys, that means you'll be conducting the meeting.
That we just said there is no meeting.
On the 9th, I thought it was always board meeting. It's the first and third Monday of every month. I'll be gone for the third.
You mean September we're talking?
Yes, September 19th.
Just giving you a heads up. Are you here?
Yeah.
Because we're the only two that can hold a board meeting.
I'm gone the 25th.
Okay. Okay. Did we do it?
Yes.
Great. As always, thank you guys for all your hard work. So we'll compile this, we'll go up and catch, maybe we can catch Anita right now and see what we can set up. Were there any other questions? It seems like we might have had some for her, but maybe not. Darcy, as always, thank you also.
You're welcome.
Certainly does help to have someone here to keep us going straight and narrow.